All right, today, guys, what we're going to be doing is showing a video on how to proactively deal with this problem where the body seam has begun cracking. So you can see all along here, I caught this when I was up here on the roof rack recently. You can see the body seam's all cracking, and it's been probably cracking for a little while undetected by me, because you can see there's even some corrosion staining leaching through it. So what we're going to need to do is remove all of this and replace it and repaint it. So you want to get a couple of picks. I've got a couple here that I'm going to use. I prefer a straight one and then one that has a little bit of a curve. Basically, this kind of repair is just to kind of scrape all this hardened body seam material out. You know, after 20 some odd years, this thing is way past its useful service life. So it's just all gotten solid, hard, and begun to crack up like you see here. Right. So this is all you're going to do. You're going to go down here and just pull all of this out. You get a few pieces that are still clinging in. The softer pieces, the curve tool can help with that. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to peel all this out because GM uses this whenever they have a gap area that they want to seal up before they go into the final paint phase. And so what that means is underneath here is going to be some bare metal, and it might even be a bare seam where water could leach in and eventually lead to a leak. If you guys look at the video I did earlier about this leak that was along this edge of this quarter panel window seal, and I'll link that up in the upper right, you can see here is another opportunity for the water to go back underneath here and find a compromised place in the urethane seal that is adhering this window glass to the body. So we want to pay attention to things like this and address them proactively when they pop up. So I'm just going to continue going down through here, just so you see me here, removing all of this dried up caulk. Not necessarily going to film this whole thing because it's probably going to take me 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 to get all this out of here. And what I'll do is I'll come back after I've extracted all this out. Basically, I'm going to take it out all the way to here, and I'm going to take out this little piece right on the front here. We'll get it all cleaned out, and I'll show you how you can repair this and then get it painted back to match. All right, guys, we've mostly picked this stuff out, and I'm just taking this little metal spudging type tool just to get any residual pieces that are out of these grooves and crannies here. You can kind of see if I move my finger here what we're dealing with here. So it's just like the recessed edge here in this seam. But over on this side you can see why this can be a problem, right? So you can see this area here is completely open. This is a gap. And the primary reason this material was used was to seal this up. So this is an entry point where water can end up getting down behind this body panel and causing corrosion from the inside out. So all we have left, this material here, we're just going to kind of tip over and out of here. All we have left is just this little bit at the edge. Now the next step we're going to do, we're going to clean this out. We're just going to make sure again with this that we've gotten all this out of here. And you want to be careful not to damage the paint on the outer side. This has a little bit of clear coat damage already from just aging. I'll probably sand all that off before we touch it up. And then blow all this out so you can see that you've gotten it all out of here, because there can possibly be another seam in here, although in this one I don't see it. This appears to be how this piece was stamped before they welded it together. So I think what we have is we have a gap on this side, and there's probably a gap on this side just under this seal. So what we're going to do is we're just going to continue to work this last little piece out over here. I use a tool like this so that I can curve it in, pull it, and then just kind of pick it out like that. What I'm trying to do is not put a lot of stress on this seal and prise that up, because that'll just put more weakening of 20-year-old urethane, that's holding and get right along the edges here. We don't need to cause more damage there. All right, so I'm going to just continue like what you see here. I just stop for a second to show you what I'm doing here. I'm just going to continue picking this out of here on this particular edge, because I'm pretty certain this is an open edge like we showed on the other side. And we'll get this all picked out of here. We'll get this cleaned out, and then we'll get ready to show you how you can treat it and put new sealer in there. All right, guys, we're just going to kind of blow out any more debris that we've got here. I just like using a little piece of canned air like you'd use on a computer. It works. All right, so take a flashlight here. I can show you. If we take a look down inside this area here, get my little pick to show you. So we can see there's a gap right in that area there that we pulled out. We just pulled this up just slightly. So you can see we left some of the old material in there because we don't want to pull the seal up and deform it, but just enough to expose the cracking material that was covering up that gap. So it's not as big as the gap that we see on this side, but there's still a gap there. All right, so at this point, the next thing we're going to do is we need to prep this because we've scratched this metal. In some places, we may have even pulled off some primer that was there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of paper here, just kind of mark about how wide this needs to be. It's just it's a simple way you can kind of make a little guide template. I know this won't all maybe fit on the camera area here, but just kind of make a snip. Cut out something like that. Or you can do your own thing, right? But this is what I find helps me. And then I can open up this piece of paper, and then I've just made myself a very convenient masking area. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this down because we're going to come in here and we're going to treat this with a chemical paint that's designed to stop the corrosion process. And then after that dries, then we're going to apply some new body sealer. So I'm going to get this taped down and we'll come back. I'll show you that product that we're going to paint it with. We'll let it dry and we'll come back. We'll show you the product that we're going to reseal it with. All right, guys, you see we've got this kind of blue taped off so that we can not get any overspray on the vehicle finish that we don't want to. And there's even a little bit under here just to kind of lift this up for a moment. All right, even under here. Little piece of tape I put on here just to make sure no overspray gets on the black seal that might shoot through here. Same thing on this side. So this is the product I'm going to be using. I use this for a lot of projects. Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer. It's a primer that will convert rust chemically and stop the corrosion process from continuing. So it's a good kind of base layer for something like this, and we don't have to do a lot of prep on it. We'll just do one more freeing up of this, and then we're just going to kind of lay it in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to put one more coat on, and then we're going to move on to the next step. And All right, guys, at this point, I am going to carefully remove our mask. And the only reason I'm not, destroying it is we will use it when we put the touch-up paint, actual color coat on. So we want to try and get this off without damaging it so that we can reuse it later. Now you might have a few pieces you missed. That's okay. We can touch those up later. At this point, we want to move on to putting the new body seam material in here. Now the product I'm using just sits in a regular old caulking gun. It's from 3M Automotive Division, and the trade name on this 3M product is Dynatron. So it's just a basic seam sealer. There's nothing fancy about it. You can pick it up at AutoZone, Discount Auto Parts, O'Reilly's. It's very common. There's a GM version of this too, and I'll link the part number for that. But the problem with doing small jobs like this is typically you'll do one of these and then you won't touch it for a while, and then the whole thing will be dried up. So it's kind of a waste for the cost. I'd rather use something like this. It's like 14, 15 bucks. All right, so in this piece where we have the gap in the metal that I showed you earlier, we're going to want to force a lot of this material in under pressure. And I already have this cut open because I'm doing the same repair on the driver's side already. Okay, so now we got that in there. Then we're just going to come across here. And you want to get a very light coat. This stuff's a little bit thicker than a silicone type of caulk. We don't want to fill this whole area in. We want to do it just like we saw the material we took out. And then we can take a spudging tool like we used earlier, some type of a paddle tool, And we can come down here and we can work it in. Get it nice and smooth. And work it into all these seams, or excuse me, these rough edges on the sides. So it's another one of these kind of jobs you just have to be patient, like anything else with body work. If you come up on this top view here, you can see that we're working for a nice, even distribution of this material. So you want something like that, and then we're going to come out here, we're going to remove this part that we have over the side, and then we're just going to kind of work this in on this side here and make a nice transition. All right, and so the rest of this, I'm going to take a paper towel like this, just kind of work the pieces that we got a little bit too much over on. We don't have to get it all off because we're going to end up top coating it anyway, but it'll make it a little easier, and this way we won't have to do much sanding. Really, the only sanding I really want to be doing here is to get rid of some of this peeling clear coat along the edges that we saw at the beginning. Kind of come in with this shape of the tool, and we can remove that. It's like working with clay. In fact, if you look at the ingredient list on this, there's all kinds of mineral type compounds in these body sealers. It's not like a urethane or anything like that. Okay, so you guys get the hang of it here. I'm just going to go through and continue sculpting this into the original position, and then we're going to let it dry. And then we're going to be able to paint over it as is. When we come back, the only thing left to do is a little bit of light sanding and to paint the top coat. All right, guys, it's not quite dry yet. Just coming out here to do the next step, though. You can take like your spudging tool, and you can see that it leaves little marks like that. It's still not quite fully cured. It's been sitting for, I don't know, 45 minutes, almost an hour. I'm going to take some 800 and some 1500 grit sandpaper, though, just some scrap pieces I have, and we're going to clean up these edges where we had some clear coat that was coming off before we started this repair, as well as some of the spillover that we had from some of this caulk. And you don't need to get this perfect. You really just after this edge so that you don't see anything. Now, you say, hey, who's up and looking on the roof looking at this? But the idea is you want to do it the right way, or don't bother doing it at all. All right, so that's the next step I wanted to show you. So again, I'm just going to keep coming in here. I'm going to work all of this down on these edges with this 800, and then I'm going to go up to 15. You're not going to use any wet because we don't want to get any water around here and encourage corrosion on any places that we perhaps still have exposed. So I'm going to keep doing that, and then we'll come back. All right, guys, this is all dried up now, so I'm ready to put the top coat on. I've sanded as much of this as I want to do because I'm not trying to, make this a larger feather and job than I need here. Now, I wanted to show you that on this side, I actually took some of that caulk material, that body seam material, and I would fill it in manually underneath the seam like we were talking about, not to put some stress on this because of the old urethane sealer and not wanting to create more problems. And so that's all I ended up doing under there. So at this stage, to get ready to do our top coat, I'm going to go back and get our template again. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to cut this back a little bit so that I can put the tape down a little closer this time. And then before I lay it down, I'll put some tape around this seal so we keep the paint off of that, and around this. I also wanted to show you, I ended up expanding this little project. While this was drying, I noticed that this material, this body seam material, was also used at this seam here on both sides. And it had a little bit of a crack there too. And again, while you're up here, I figured, let's just go ahead and get it off. So I picked all that out on both of these edges and used the same body seam sealer that I used up here and let that dry before we did this project here. So after we top coat this, I'll take you around and show you, besides, this is the driver's side, you got this identical setup on the passenger side. There's also two other places and it's identical for both the passenger and the driver's side that I'll show you after this, that you want to check for and may possibly do the same sort of repair. So let me get this mask all set up and we'll come back. All right, guys, did something a little bit different this time. I've got the sealing tape underneath, and I'm just using this kind of like a splash shield. I'm just going to come in and do one coat this way, and then after it dries, I'll do another coat, and then I'll come in and touch up the piece that you saw under here. I'm just using a rattle can of touch-up paint for this particular project because it's up on the roof here, and it's such a small amount. And I plan to eventually repaint the roof anyway. So just don't need to do much. Just let that on there, let that dry. While that's drying, before I put the second coat on, let's go take a look at the other places to watch for. All right, guys, the first other place I'll show you to look is under the hood on each side, passenger and driver side, but particularly on the passenger side, you'll see this body caulk. You can see it molded under the paint here on each side of the cowl. And this piece here tends to crack, and I've picked all that out and resealed it, as you see, and then we'll be top coating this as well. You want to check for this area and do the same treatment on both sides like we showed in that seam between the middle and front doors. And let me show you one other place on the back of the vehicle. All right, in the back, guys, up where the roof line comes into the corner, and you've got this panel piece that covers, the pillar vent panel. Right in the corner on both the passenger and driver side is another area where that caulking often gets cracked and it needs to be picked off. To do this one, I already did this one earlier and already top coated it yesterday. You'll have to remove this piece. Just remember, when you put this piece back on, all of these bolts, give them a shot of black silicone RTV just to avoid any water creeping in from there. But between these two on the passenger and driver side, the front cowl on the passenger and driver side, and that pillar between the rear door on the driver and the passenger side that we showed at the beginning, those are the three areas you want to watch primarily for these body seams fading with age. So let's go back and see how our touch-up paint job did. All right, guys, got two coats on here, finally dry after a few hours. I mean, we'll let it go overnight, of course. You can see there's just a little bit of the color difference from the old faded paint and the correct color-coded paint that's new out of the rattle can. This particular type of paint is actually out of a GM can, but anything you do here will be fine. I'll come over here afterwards and do just a little bit, like 1500 grit, and then lay a clear coat on top of it, and that'll take care of that. All right, so this piece came out nice. I'm happy with this. What I'm going to do, just some extra insurance, I'm going to put a little bit of our flowable silicone along the corner here, just to continue to discourage the water from trying to get under here on some of these potentially weak urethane seals. Let's go take a look and see how it came out under the hood. All right, this piece here came out very nice too. Again, you can see the difference in transition from the older faded paint to the brand new paint, but that's really not what we're concerned with here. That's more cosmetic. We're concerned with here is preventing water intrusion and being proactive about catching that. So, again, the two pieces here on both sides of the cowl, the two pieces of the pillar at the roof between each of the front and the rear door and the rear quarters, and of course at the very back on the top corners. This piece would apply, that's like our flashlight is going spastic here. This piece would apply to all of the 92 to 98 type era trucks, pickups, chassis cabs, as well as SUVs like Suburbans and Tahoes, Yukons. The other pieces that I showed you, though, would only apply to the SUV models. But I hope this helps you out. If you got some comments, go ahead and leave them below. I'll try to help you out. If you got some other ideas or some other products you've used for this similar type of repair, please feel free to share those as well. Please hit that like button if you found this useful, and thanks for watching.